Hey folks, this is Chris from the Tech Summit podcast. We are currently on a brief hiatus, and this episode is pre-recorded prior to December 27th. As such, this episode may contain news or information that may be outdated. We will be back with more up-to-date news and recordings on January 17th. Thank you for understanding, and enjoy the podcast.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Tech Summit Experience. I mean, the Tech Summit Podcast, and we are on episode 18. My name is Francisco.
I'm Chris.
And as per usual, all of our social media is going to be right down here. And if you would rather listen to us in audio format on all of your preferred podcasting apps, I want to say, or platforms, the link to those are going to be down below. That includes Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts, amongst others.
And of course, if you're already listening to us on those platforms, all of the social media information will be in the respective description.
Exactly. And don't forget to stop by YouTube every now and then. Our faces shouldn't be ignored forever.
Subscribe to the Tech Summit channel.
Yes.
Of course, for all of your good tech reviews and everything like that.
Yes, but with that said, speaking of tech, a lot of big things coming up, and that includes CES.
That's right.
Yeah, CES 2021 is going to be pretty great.
Starting, I believe, January 11th.
Yeah, I think so. So now, with that said, a lot of interesting things coming from CES already in the past. Obviously, now I've never had the opportunity to actually physically go to CES because, for one, it takes place in Las Vegas. And that's pretty far away from New York.
That's right.
Yeah. And I mean, one. And two, they also only give passes to people that are really big enough in the tech industry, usually.
Well, I think in this instance, nobody is going to be able to go to CES this time around.
Right. My assumption, and I think ours by extension, is that it is all going to be pretty much just like a run through of like trailers and like commercials for potential projects. I'm sure that Razer is going to have quite a few things going on over there.
Maybe a very small presence of journalists. Like
yeah.
The biggest ones like CNET or Tech Radar or whatever.
Right, yeah. And I feel like they're only going to have like the demonstrators wearing like face masks and stuff.
Right.
And anybody else like Linus and everybody else like they can just go in without masks. And because, they have to look good on camera.
I hope that they don't offer those special privileges just because they are people. Like, I'm pretty sure we can still understand a Linus, a sort of Linus thumbnail, even with the mask on. It's like you still just see the eyes. You'll still get it.
Yes, of course.
You'll still know there's probably an O behind that mask.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or a.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very much.
Yes.
Clickbaity stuff.
And we're not like making fun of him because we very much take a lot of inspiration from him.
Very guilty.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
In any case, so I'm actually not super familiar when it comes to CES. So like this is going to have a very interesting dynamic for this particular episode because we have someone who is a bit more familiar when it comes to that particular tech stuff and tech news, and someone who is still very new to this whole thing. Sort of like the apprentice in sorts, just because like I don't know that much about these things.
I will teach you.
Yes, please, master.
Of course, yeah. So I would say that, one of the biggest things on CES has always been TVs. Like, they always have this massive section for TVs, and OLED has been a big thing for quite some time. And actually, in the past, LG presented their paper-esque flat screen TV, which was basically one that you would mount magnetically onto the wall.
Magnetically onto the wall?
Yes, like you would screw on magnets and stuff, and then you just mount the TV that way. And the TV was so thin that for it to have any kind of sound, they actually designed the speaker to just be outside of the TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
which
very interesting.
It was definitely very interesting. I feel like CES is such a great place for showing off passion projects.
So my question
like
is,
that.
did it ever release?
It did.
Really?
Yes,
Where?
it did release. Where
and for how much?
On LG's website and for a ton of money.
Okay.
Yeah,
a lot.
I don't remember the exact price.
Because what I'm trying to wonder, because like, okay, so I'm not too familiar with CES, but there's one thing that I am familiar with. It is the New York International Auto Show, which is, the tech automotive thing, which
It's for cars, though, isn't it?
it is for cars,
Okay.
which of course I imagine, who knows, maybe we put a little small shout out for that whenever it comes around sometime in April or whatever, maybe, who knows.
Sure.
Please.
Okay.
We'll do like a small little shout out there because obviously technology is very much a thing for the auto show.
Mhm.
Obviously, the big thing in the last couple of years has very much been self-driving capabilities.
Oh yeah.
So
I,
that's
I
something that
actually
could open cars.
watched an ad the other day on Volvo, and that they're releasing a car, or that they did at least. I'm not entirely sure, but they do have at least a vehicle in the works, that even if you're not paying attention, if it senses that you are supposed to stop and there's somebody crossing the street, it'll just, like, the car will just stop for you.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely been technology that has been in development for several years now and has more or less been a bit of a stay for a little bit now. It is of course getting better, and we are
Mhm.
the main goal for a lot of these automotive companies eventually is just full on self driving capabilities,
Yeah.
which some of them have done. I know
Mhm.
Tesla has the ability for that, but how well it is, it's kind of up in the air, I think. But
Yeah, for sure. Like, there have been some incidents occurring. I would say that last year, I think, was probably when the bulk of said incidents
right.
came about. Like, there was actually an incident where somebody unfortunately went away from a self-driving car that did not self-stop.
Oh no.
Yeah, pun intended, of course. But
um, but in any case,
the
so yeah.
technology has gotten a lot better,
So
though.
yeah, so as someone who's more familiar with the auto show as opposed to CES, the one thing that I've noticed a lot that happens in the auto show is they often love to show concepts,
Yes.
concept cars, concept vehicles that, offer a vision of what they might want to do in the future, but then either it never materializes beyond that one concept that they show off,
Hmm.
or it takes form in a completely different sort of light. Like, say, for example, I know BMW had a concept a long time ago for a all electric
Hmm.
sports vehicle, and it looked groundbreaking, super futuristic at the time, and it's one of the few instances where a concept vehicle actually ends up coming to fruition because later on it did take on a new form and it became the BMW i8, which I'm imagining you're at least a little familiar with.
I mean, if it's the one you hate, maybe not.
It is not the one that I hate whatsoever. BMW i8 is probably my dream car, if anything, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
all
I thought
electric.
that I just heard you say hate. I'm sorry.
i8,
Oh, eight.
i8,
Oh, I am so sorry.
i8. All electric sports vehicle, very good, very fast, $160,000, I believe, minimum.
160,000.
Yeah, no, it's in the it's approaching the Ferrari price range there. But there's actually a couple of people who seem to have it in my neighborhood, very interestingly, even though I don't live in a rich neighborhood.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Wow.
But
I guess a lot of enthusiasts around
in any
there.
case, so yeah, the auto show does often have a lot of time dedicated to concept vehicles that may not ever actually materialize. And I'm wondering, does CES have the exact same sort of vibe to it, or do most of the products at CES actually happen?
It does have the same vibe, I would say.
Yeah.
Some of the products end up happening. Like, essentially, CES is a place where companies and brands do come to show off products that are actually going to come out. And they also come in to show off passion projects, or
Mm.
like things that, could be a possibility, things that would be pretty cool to have around. Like, for instance, I think it was actually for CES 2018. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on the year, but Razer brought in this triple screen laptop, uh, a single laptop.
One
I
laptop.
One laptop that had three screens uh, uh, that would just slide out
So it
from the
would
hinge.
slide out? Because I
Yeah.
was imagining like you open it up and then you have to clam out the other parts.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
I mean, there do exist products like that, but not from Razer, luckily, because like those tend to be a little bit odd to work with, I would say,
Mm.
from what I have seen. Like, it just has been a little bit awkward. So, like, in this case, it is just a lot easier to travel with a laptop like this. Now, granted, this laptop would chew through battery like crazy, of course, and all of these screens were at a pretty high resolution. I don't think they were beyond 60 hertz at the time, though. But obviously, this was a concept that was never actually sold to the public. But Linus did actually, like, not only was he able to talk about it uh, at CES, but they actually sent him the triple screen laptop to test out at one point, which was really cool to see. And, like, concepts like this we end up seeing a lot of, and especially from Razer, they're the ones that tend to come in with like some pretty crazy ideas. Now, there was one point where they did actually come in with their own monitor, because for a very long time, like they do cater to people who are looking for peripherals for PC gaming and things like that.
Yeah.
But uh, they've never actually had a monitor. And this time around, they brought in a 1440p monitor that does have like pretty unique cable management around the back, even though that's not what made it special. Obviously, it was still a pretty cool monitor, and that monitor actually went out for sale, so you can buy it for around
Really?
$700 or so.
Okay.
So it is more so on the premium side, but it's not the most expensive monitor out there either. The monitor that I use right now from Asus or Asus, depending on your persuasion, was around that much, and it is just a 1440p 144 hertz monitor. And it is only ATN panel, and I think that the one that they showed off has an IPS panel.
Mm.
Yeah, so like some products end up coming into fruition. In fact, I would probably say that a good chunk of them do, but there's also like that one chunk that doesn't really end up coming into fruition, or at the very least not yet. Like it's something that we might see again in the future. Like they probably just bring it in to like show it off and say, "Hey, this is something that we're potentially working on." What do you guys think?
So, what would you say is the wildest concept that you've personally seen from CES?
Oh boy.
The
The-
wildest, silliest.
that is that is a tough question right there. And I've been asked some tough questions
Like
my entire life.
to use the auto show as an example, I believe Toyota, for a good couple of years actually, was demonstrating this concept vehicle that was like small little thing, 3 wheels, and like I believe you like lounged. I believe you lounged back in it like so, and it was like the entire screen, the entire like windshield was like a giant HUD monitor, something
Mm,
out of like a cyberpunk or like a Blade Runner type deal.
interesting.
And it would self-drive, obviously,
Mm.
but you could also technically drive it yourself. But the idea is that it was almost like some sort of stasis chamber that was also so compact and small that you could technically take it down alleys.
Was the car mostly like rounded? Like, did it have like a really round shape to it?
It was kind of more of a tube. I know which one you're thinking of.
Mm.
There was in fact a smaller rounded one. I think Toyota also brought that one out.
Okay.
They had them back to back, like
Oh,
right next to each other.
interesting.
It's like a very complicated little thing. But like it was extremely weird, super interesting,
Mhm.
but it was also really wild. Same thing, less wild and more just kind of funny when you think about it. There's also always been, and this has actually been a still increasingly, especially nowadays, type of thing that they're trying to make an all electric Hummer.
Hummer.
They're trying to bring Hummer back all electric.
Okay, like I have seen Hummers going around rarely, but like I have seen a few. But that's so interesting. Like they're trying to bring in an all electric Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Hummers used to be extremely popular. Everybody wanted a Hummer
Ah,
back in the early
no,
2000s.
no Hummers, please. No Hummers.
I actually oh, so that's the car. Okay, so
Okay,
like it was
I
pretty
think
rounded.
I think this might have been. So for those who are listening on other platforms, we are looking currently at the moment at one of the pictures of the car. I believe this is one of them. I believe this might have been it.
I
Okay, it
see.
wasn't 3-wheeled, but
It does have a very futuristic
was
look to it. I mean, look at the LEDs.
there were other concepts. I'm pretty sure the one that I was thinking of looks a bit more motorcycle-y.
Hmm.
Shoot. Of course, we are doing this research right now with the super mega research center here now in our studio.
Yes. So for
While we're
those who might be
looking,
wondering, this is a 4K 55-inch TV
that's right.
from TCL. It is currently running on Android TV, and it was only $200 for that Black Friday sale that I definitely snagged.
I know, and it's so nice. So while I'm looking for this on the hunt, tell me about that CES concept that you really thought was ridiculous.
Oh man. Okay, like the crazier ideas do tend to come from Razer. From recent memory, I actually don't remember keeping up with CES 2020, but I do remember quite a lot of things actually from CES 2018 and 2019. But 2020 was kind of a loss for me, like just because I just kind of missed the videos from that time era. Oh, you found it.
I found it.
Wow.
I wish people could see this for themselves. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
maybe we'll put a link in the description. Maybe we'll put a link in the description for like the YouTube video.
I think in the
or
future, we should actually consider having like screen capture to like include in the.
for the videos, absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, for the audio platforms, maybe we put like a video in the description link. But
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah,
just
for you
look at
guys,
that.
yeah, that
That
looks
is,
super futuristic.
it's Tron.
Yeah, it's like Cortana is on the glass.
I like how they have a display on the wheel.
Yeah,
They have the display on the. That's what it was. The FV2. That's what it is. The Toyota FV2,
Yeah.
three-wheeled motorcycle.
the ultimate flex
All
whenever
right.
it comes into market.
For those who are listening with Google at the ready, it's the Toyota FV2.
Yeah, so do keep that Google search window on there,
As you were saying.
as I was saying.
So sorry for interrupting.
No worries, please. You blessed me here with that. I want to say that the craziest concept. Oh, geez. I mean, like the 3 monitor laptop thing was already crazy enough to me, but that's actually like CES was where like the double screen laptops by Asus or Asus, depending on your persuasion, were showcased at first because obviously like these are super expensive laptops for the most part. They've recently gone down a little bit in price. Like now they're more accessible,
Mhm.
between $2,000 to $3,000 and even going upwards of that. But actually, the craziest machine that I remember seeing was a laptop from Acer, and that was just like a couple of years back. It was like the ultimate laptop
Mhm.
that no one was meant to buy, but it was just like this crazy concept of like just what the best laptop ever could possibly be. So
Which was.
I think it was somewhere around like a $10,000 laptop, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But so what they made, I believe, was this like 21-inch laptop. It was like upwards of 20 inches, I think. Yes, it was massive. It was extremely thick. It came in this like carrying luggage case.
Okay.
Yeah. And I man, I don't remember if it had a battery installed that you can actually get on planes with or not.
Uh-huh.
I think that they may have actually limited it to like not 99 watt hours, which is like the very limit that you can actually travel with. But this laptop had a 4K display. Um, it had like a full-on mechanical keyboard. It did have 2 GPUs in SLI. And it did have, I think at the time, an i9, if I'm not mistaken, because Ryzen still wasn't taking the laptop world by storm. I could be entirely wrong about that, but like from what I remember, that was the case. And I think that also at the time it was just like 10,000 series GPU, so I think it was just 2 1080 Ti's or maybe even like 2 Mobile Titans.
Mm.
Again, like I'm just trying to bring this up from recent memory, but it was a very chunky boy.
It's not really a laptop then.
It's a desktop that you can travel with.
I was gonna say, it's a traveling desktop. It's
Yeah.
kind of like those instances where you see someone like you ever see those things where like people will make like a briefcase and then you open it up and there's like a GameCube in it or something like that.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
what-
this
that's what
with
it
like an
sounds
Xbox.
like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think there was a pro wrestler that actually had that. Like he has a briefcase with a 360 in it for when he's traveling.
A 360. I mean, that
Yeah.
must have been a long time ago then.
No, actually, I think it was recently. He just didn't want to get an Xbox One. He had a 360. It was already built into the briefcase, you know.
A pro wrestler.
Yeah, I think I think specifically AJ Styles for the wrestling fans out here who know them.
I actually do happen to know.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I used to be a very big fan of wrestling actually as a kid, but that eventually dwindled off
Right.
into my teens. But with that aside, um, yeah, like that was just a very crazy concept. And after CES, they did end up sending out that laptop to like a bunch of different YouTubers. Like Dave Lee ended up getting it. Linus Tech Tips obviously at some point ended up getting it. And it was just this like crazy of a concept that yes, everybody acknowledged you're not meant to actually buy this laptop, and they made a limited quantity of this laptop too, and they numbered each one as
Mm.
well. And I think that they made, if I'm not mistaken, like 100, maybe 1,000 of them. I don't know if they ever sold out or not, but like it was just like such a novelty thing to have.
Imagine scalping that.
Don't start. I still have my heart broken from the many, many incidents that have come about recently. But with the happiness from CES returning to the podcast.
That's right. Right. So,
yeah.
So there's been a lot of crazy concepts. So my thing is,
Mhm.
what are you? I guess it's a two-pronged thing. What are you expecting from CES, and what are
Mhm.
you wishing for? Like, what do you like? Sort of like, what are you expecting, and what is like on your wish list?
Okay. I'm expecting Apple to not be there as usual. They
Mhm.
actually just tend to hold their own events. I don't know if it's because they feel like they're just too good for CES, which would be pretty ironic. But I think that it's just because they can bring more attention to their own products. You know, like it's just better ultimately for them to market it on their own. And I was just trying to be a little bit cheeky there,
Mhm.
but uh, yeah, like I'm not expecting Apple to be there. Razer, I am expecting them to come in with something pretty crazy, and I'm actually kind of expecting them to come in with like a competitor to the iPad Pro. Like that's a pretty idea to kind of throw out there, like for them to have their own Android tablet. But obviously, I feel like they would cater it more so towards gamers, and they did actually have tablets at one point.
Mhm.
Like way back when, actually. I think I want to say maybe like 2014, 2015, and and that's probably too recent for this idea, but they actually did have like a tablet that had like a controller attached to it, and it was basically a Switch that you could play mobile games on.
Mhm.
But
What do you do?
I mean, it was just that.
I mean, it's mobile games.
Yeah, it was a very expensive tablet, nonetheless. It was almost like an NVIDIA Shield. I want to say like that NVIDIA Shield controller that you did picture had first that had like the flip up screen and stuff like that. It was like the modern DS or the
Okay.
modern 3DS.
Sounds like a proto shield to me. Proto switch. Excuse me.
A proto Switch. Yeah. It was almost as if like a bunch of other companies were like beta testing this idea for Nintendo before it became a thing. And guess what? It was a success. It just had to. It just needed the right form factor.
Honestly, knowing Nintendo, they were probably just doing it on their own entirely, thinking, "Man, we're innovating so much."
I mean, maybe.
And then everyone else was just sort of doing it, and they're just like, "All right, let's do it better."
Yeah. I mean, that's probably what they saw the Wii U controller as. They were like, this is the ultimate way of gaming. You can game on the toilet, on the living room, on your bedroom.
So long as you're still connected.
Yes, your console can stay in one place as long as your Wi-Fi reaches. and things like that. Like I do expect Razer to come up with some kind of crazy concept like that, or maybe even actually have like actually get into the GPU business.
Mm.
I mean, out of a lot of the PC gaming companies, they're one of the few that don't have like their own custom graphics cards.
Mm.
But I would say that that's a lot more far-fetched. I think that if anything, they might try to come up with like a pretty sleek gaming tablet, the same way that they came out with the Razer Phone 1 and the Razer Phone 2, which both have 120 hertz screens, you know, like just a wonderful gaming phone.
Right.
Yeah. So I would expect the crazier things to come from Razer. And I know that I'm probably coming off as a Razer fanboy, which I admittedly undoubtedly am. But yeah, like I would expect that. Asus usually comes in with pretty cool stuff as well, and Acer actually tends to innovate in that regard too. I think that I mean there's not too much I think right now that is just left to the imagination. I think that a lot of concepts that people have probably thought of in their heads have probably already been presented on CES. So I actually have a pretty tough time like thinking, how can they surprise me this year?
So
What do you have in mind?
I'm going to come from this as at the perspective of someone who does not usually pay attention to CES at all. Like you mentioned before with TVs a lot. The only time I ever usually hear about CES
Mhm.
was TVs.
Mhm.
So I'm going to come at this from the perspective of someone who is just wild and crazy imagination. I'm also going to come at this as a very weird bend because obviously we are the Tech Summit podcast.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. Go for it.
We focus on tech. We focus a lot on technology of usually the computer, game, and phone persuasions.
Consoles as well. We have been
A lot of
talking a lot about
times,
that. Yeah.
a lot of times also audio, possibly microphones and headphones.
Exactly.
Not too long ago we were talking about the new Apple headphones that were coming around.
Yes, actually, like that is definitely an interesting story. So do
Right.
make sure to stop by that episode of the podcast. If anything, I'm going to make sure to leave it linked in
Yeah.
the description.
What's it called? So I'm going to come at this focusing on pieces of tech that we have not yet covered. Because I have in front of us on the Tech Summit Research Center, which is not on camera, a list from CES's own website of the kind of products that they tend to, debut at these shows.
You mentioned that 3D printing was apparently a pretty big deal. At
Let
CES.
us start with that. If you look down here, it's apparently 3D printers made their debut at CES in 2014.
That's that's pretty crazy.
Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's start with 3D printing then, especially because it's the first item on the list alphabetically.
Yeah.
I want to see. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm going to guess that it's not going to happen. But as someone who very casually, outsider looking in, I see a lot of interest and possible like uses for 3D printing. 3D printing can be one of the biggest things that because you have people who 3D print little objects, little knickknacks or whatever. You have people who 3D print items for their cosplays for conventions and stuff like that. You have people who 3D print automotive parts.
And there are people who make a business too out of 3D printing, like a
exactly,
Nazi.
Yeah. I just like, by the way, 3D printing automotive parts. That you remember those old PSAs back then. You wouldn't steal a car. When it was the anti-piracy ads.
Oh,
you wouldn't steal a car. Someone clearly just did. No, but then you
I'm
also
gonna put some DRM on that car.
But
actually.
then you also have. Then you also have the more practical things, like you have cases where people can 3D print body parts, organs, possibly prosthetics, and those are really interesting things. So first off, I want to see where 3D printing can go when it comes to the medical field and stuff like that. Like what else can 3D printers really do? Because it's possible. I'd see it not too far along in the future, like maybe the next 25 years or so, we can see like 3D printing alongside other stuff, making actual synthetic organs like a beating heart or lungs that can help. That can expand or contract to be like a replacement.
Yeah,
those are the kind of things that are very interesting to me.
As a lighter solution to, let's say, like a prototype of, let's say, like a heart, for instance.
Kind of like augments. Like the Deus Ex augments or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious of that. Also, on a more lighter note, I'm also curious to see if maybe we can start seeing 3D printers with a smaller form factor.
Sure.
Because a lot of 3D printers are very big, and B, a much more reasonable price point. Because a lot of 3D printers are actually very expensive and kind of get priced out of people who are like casually looking into it.
And the pretty cheap ones that we have seen, like things like it's kind of like a hot glue gun. At least I imagine that this is kind of how it works, but it's actually like a pen. And they show you like pictures of like people making houses with these like 3D printers, and they just like draw the house out. These like pen cell 3D printers have been pretty bad. I would love to see like something that maybe is as fast as one of those when it comes to making things, but something that can actually make something more practical, or something that is...
I can totally see that happening too.
Yeah.
Or we could also see, of course, 3D printers that get faster, because to my understanding, 3D printing can often take a very long time.
Yeah. Like I do remember trying to 3D print a like mock model of the Google Pixel 2. So that was obviously like 3 years ago. And I do remember bringing it over to a 3D printer that we had back at my old school, like not at the one that I just graduated from, but before that.
Right.
They had a 3D printer there, and for me to get like, I would say maybe like a 2 to 3 inch like 3D print of that phone, I had to wait overnight. And mind you, like I had that thing ready to go at like 2 p.m. that day, and already like I was told, hey, like come back tomorrow.
Right.
It was just going to take too long.
So 3D printing, which has been massively fantastic up to this point, but still very prohibitive for various reasons. I do think we can start to maybe slowly see advancements in there, either in it being more financially accessible for people, maybe having a less bulky form factor, or more than anything, also being faster. Because, like, say, for example, if we're talking about making like synthetic parts or prosthetics for medical reasons, surely it has to go faster than several days. Because, we're talking about, like, if you want to make a prosthetic arm, you're probably talking about 3D printing multiple parts.
Yes.
So that's probably like a month of printing.
Yes. Like, and mind you, like, somehow being able to ensure that the part that you're printing is the size that you need it to be, I imagine would be like another big challenge as well.
Well, same thing on the 3D side of things. Here we go, my 3D experience.
Go for it.
There is also the fact that when it comes to 3D printing, you do have to actually make sure that your model is able to support that. Like, you cannot have any open holes in your model, for example.
Right.
It has to be perched in a way that can be supported by weight. Like, say, for example, if you have something that's very top heavy, then of course that's not really going to 3D print very well, because then it's just going to sort of fall apart while it's in the middle of printing. So you would have to probably like orient it in a different way if you want it to work very well, or be supported in a decent way.
Yeah.
But I would love the idea of having a 3D printer and using that for myself and learning how to make 3D printed items. Again, have my own Etsy shop, darn it,
Right. Yeah. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Something else that I'm also seeing here is AR/VR/XR. Now, I know what AR and VR are. What the hell is XR?
XR? I have no idea.
Okay, so ignoring that then. So VR, we were talking on our very first episode of the Tech Summit podcast all that time ago about other companies coming into the VR market to sort of combat, Facebook and Oculus have made big statements lately when it comes to that completely portable $300 Quest 2.
Yes.
It's extremely affordable. Portable is the best VR on the market for, an affordable standpoint. The only problem is the Facebook requirements. So it's possible that maybe other people step up. And we were talking about that not too long ago, about people who could possibly come up with that. Your Razer, your Asus.
Or Asus, depending on your persuasion. But I do prefer Asus, to be clear.
So, yeah, we were talking about all those possibilities. So do you think we could see some possibly new VR devices or like concepts for VR devices?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, HP just recently jumped in with the Reverb, for example.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, though theirs is definitely a little more so on the pricier side. I actually did look into it because I was considering whether or not I would review it, but I think it might be just a little bit expensive right now. Especially when something like the Quest exists, it's like quite literally half the price. You do have to use, you need a Facebook account, probably even an active one for that to be the case. I know. Facebook wants your data really bad. But this also brings to our attention, like, just what companies have to do in order to keep VR affordable and still usable. Because we have had different iterations of like affordable VR, right? Like we had like Google Cardboard, for instance, which was not really very successful. They actually ended up discontinuing that. It was like a $100 piece of, no, I think even cheaper actually.
Google Cardboard?
Yeah, Google Cardboard.
Google Cardboard, you were able to buy one for like $15.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
Cheap.
Actually,
it was super cheap.
You're right.
Galaxy Gear VR, the Samsung Gear VR was 100.
Right, yeah. And I know that Google still had actually like a VR headset that was around that price tag.
Was it Daydream, I think?
Daydream, yes. Yes, you got it. They also discontinued that, unfortunately, like right before I wanted to pull the trigger to buy one because I was really curious about it.
I think we just sort of sailed the ship away when it comes to mobile VR. Like, it seems like VR for the most part is either going to be PC docked or its own proprietary device like the Quest 2 currently is.
Exactly. And because of that, I mean, I'm sure that the reason why they were able to keep the price so low is because your phone was doing most, if not all, of the processing needed. So with that said, like if you want a standalone device, the one thing that a lot of VR gamers complain about is the fact that they still do have that cable dangling behind their back.
Yep.
Even though it doesn't really bother me that much personally, like now that I actually have the freedom, since I've been using the Quest 2 so much, of not having a cable behind my back whenever I do play VR games, it does feel nicer, and it is noticeable to not have that cable behind my back. But that
Um,
device is it is a lot cheaper, but it does require a lot of your privacy, of course. So kind of just what are you willing to give up in order to have affordable VR?
yeah.
I don't think that we are at the stage right now where we can get VR without us paying, like without it being affordable in terms of actual currency, but it's still being more profitable to the company in the long run because they're just siphoning your data
There's a
of the time.
trade-off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible that we can see new VR still, possibly new devices.
Hmm.
If you had to pick a single company that had the highest chance of bringing out a new VR device this CES, what would you say? Who would you say it is?
Oculus with the Rift S2.
Another Oculus.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
fine. Let me rephrase it. A company that does not already have presence in the VR market,
okay. Um,
because you could usually say that Index 2 could show up, but
no, yeah, right. Okay. So with all of that aside, I don't think Razer would be the one to jump in. But actually, if anything, I wonder if Intel would just straight up make their own.
Intel,
Yeah,
very interesting.
I think Intel. Intel
Okay,
would probably be one to give it a go. I don't think it would be cheap by any means, but I think that Intel can make strides in that direction. And if not, even Nvidia, like straight up, since they're the ones that have like the VR ready stamps on the computers that they sell and the graphics cards that they sell and things like that. So
I'm going to. It's a tough one.
I know
I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say Dell.
Dell.
I say Dell, maybe under the Alienware brand.
Right. I,
Although,
I I think that that's the way that they would do it, if anything.
I was gonna say Samsung because it's entirely possible that Samsung decides to try VR again on a desktop format.
No.
But I imagine after the Gear VR, they probably want to give it at least a bit of a rest and wait until the market's proven. So
Right, yeah. Plus, I don't even think that so I'm not sure if you knew this, but like Samsung was in the laptop market for quite a while.
yeah,
And I'm pretty sure that right now they still are to some extent. But they definitely trickled down to going more so with like Chromebooks and things
right.
like that. So I think that they're probably trying more so to stay away from that market.
No, I totally understand. They probably want to give it a bit of a rest there. So yeah, no, I personally would say Dell/Alienware
Hmm.
personally.
I think that's a good guess, actually.
So something else I also wanted to focus on a little bit before I get to the last little bit that I found rather interesting. So I'm wondering, looking at all this stuff here, there's also fitness and wearables. I imagine there's probably going to be like a new Fitbit model, which is interesting, new Fitbit
Hmm.
or a new wearable gear, which I actually find very interesting as well because just from my example, my taste,
You do like smartwatches?
this is actually a fitness wearable, technically speaking.
Mhm.
This is a Garmin Vivio Active 3.
Oh, okay.
So very happy with it.
Mhm.
Possible issues when it comes to the stress detector. Like there'll be times where I'm perfectly content and it's like you have medium stress. And I'm just like, I am. I
It's
am.
like, okay, I feel that.
So I could totally see something like that happening. But
Mhm.
that's also but on a note of fitness and wearables and just health general stuff. Do you imagine that CES is going to see a lot of technology that is affected by uncertain circumstances?
I do, and I think that the wearable industries is actually specifically the one that I would see being affected in that regard. More so for people who are more so in the fitness category, right? Like people who do look for
Right.
smartwatches or Fitbits and things like that.
I'm also seeing stuff here when it comes to digital health and other things like that.
Right.
One thing I actually want to note, actually, not too long ago, I was looking into an article, and there was a discussion about potential apps, medical apps,
Mhm.
where where an AI will sort of, give you a diagnosis or suggestions or something like that. Like, say, for example,
Mhm.
you want to see a doctor for a certain possible ailment, like a dermatologist, for example.
Right.
You find a weird mole on yourself.
Yeah.
And then the app would allow you to upload the picture of the mole or whatever, and then the AI would skim through the databases of like multiple pictures of moles that could be malignant
Mhm.
or possibly dangerous or whatever, and then it would sort of try to match one close to you, and therefore be able to calculate and get a diagnosis for you, saying, okay, it's malignant, don't worry about it, or no, it could actually be or malignant. Excuse me, malignant's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, malignant is bad for sure.
Excuse me, benign is the one that's fine.
Okay.
Benign. Okay, no, it's benign, and you don't have to worry about it. Or it's malignant. Please schedule an appointment with a dermatologist. So I can imagine something like that possibly happening. Like we see further development when it comes to apps and AI that helps when it comes to medical diagnoses, especially because right now a lot of doctors are swamped.
I feel like that's going to require a lot of development, and that is a very interesting idea for sure.
We could see conceptual stuff.
Sure. The first thing that came to mind though, like when you brought this whole thing up, is actually how DNA tests work in
Oh,
general.
that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Like for example, like nobody knows this because I actually did intend on making a video about this, but I did try my ancestry, and the way that they do it is that they get a sample of your saliva,
Mhm.
send it out to them, and then within a couple of weeks, almost to like about a month, they send you an email with like all of the information that they were able to gather about your DNA. But how they do it, and how pretty much every other company has been doing it, is that they just take your sample
Mhm.
and they compare it to a bunch of other samples, and and they really take a guesstimate of what you might be ethnically, just based off of that one sample,
Right.
and comparing it to what they already have in the database. So with the more data that they get in, the more participants that they get in, like the more accurate guesses they can make. But at the end of the day, like these are still the best guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Of course, the thing to note that when it comes to those DNA tests that you just said, a couple of weeks to a month. Obviously, if you're talking about something that could be dangerous to your health, it needs to be a little bit faster. So, like, I'm
Right.
thinking, obviously the aim would be for something like that medical kind of stuff to be
Mhm.
instantaneous. A
Yeah.
DNA test, you can afford to spend a little bit more time because it's just a DNA test. It is not a test to see if you possibly could have something dangerous. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And
So
with that said,
I definitely think it's a mix.
it would mean that it would also require a lot more development.
Right. I also just imagine seeing also a lot more development when it comes to things, when it comes to responding to certain medical events that affect a global scale. Try not to get demonetized.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Try not to get demonetized. But I imagine there's going to be a lot of technology, particularly in the medical field, that might be developed not necessarily directly to respond to it, but
Mhm.
as a response from it.
Yeah.
Just to sort of combat possible future instances or things that could be affected indirectly by it.
Right.
And we want to make sure we're dealing with that.
Mhm.
Now, before we end this, I
Yes.
actually have one more thing that I wanted to note.
Go for it.
Because very interesting part of tech, and I know Tech Summit podcast would have never mentioned this unless I come out here with my weird ass coming out here with this stuff. Microwaves.
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 No, yeah, I definitely would have never brought that up.
I have been in the market to get a microwave for my father for the holidays. And so I'm curious to see, because like while doing my research for microwaves, like the LG Neo Chef in particular, it seems like the pinnacle of what a microwave would probably be. It's using infrared technology to heat things. You can roast chicken in this microwave. Like instead of having rubbery stuff, you have this nice crisp roasted chicken.
Yeah, so it's not like dangerous then, I'd imagine, right? Because like one thing with my parents in particular is that like they have this thing, right? They go, always put a lid over whatever you're going to put into the microwave, otherwise you're going to get some kind of disease.
Right, yeah, because radiation, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I want to look into it. I'm not sure if LG's Neo Chef is using radiation at all, because they mentioned infrared particularly. I'm wondering if it's
Mhm.
entirely infrared or if they're also using radiation as well, like a traditional microwave.
Though if they didn't mention radiation at all, then it probably means that they do still use it to an extent.
No idea.
Yeah, like
But-
these are all just guesses.
But it just feels like the Neo Chef just felt like the pinnacle of microwave, at least affordable microwaves. Of course, you're probably gonna have someone out there being like, excuse me, I am a chef at a 5-star restaurant, and this $3,000 microwave is actually the pinnacle. And at that point, it's like, okay,
And this whole wall right here,
I get it.
That's my microwave.
in
I can't wait until you see my oven.
any case, like it felt like the pinnacle just because like it's using all this kind of technology that I never, because I haven't got. The microwave that I have is like over 10 years old. I have an old microwave.
I understand.
So I suddenly jump into the microwave industry and I'm like, whoa, how can any of this get any better? And then they mention over here smart home and appliances, smart microwaves. It
Yes.
sounds ridiculous. It sounds asinine, but I kind of want to see what happens.
I would want one too.
I want to see how they innovate on
Mhm.
microwaves beyond the LG Neo Chef.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of which, like a smart toaster. How cool would that be?
I think that actually kind of exists. I'm not sure
Oh, really?
entirely, but there's probably a smart toaster. We actually recently got a new toaster ourselves. It's not a smart toaster, but it has like a knob which has like a digital time clock on it, and I'm just like, whoa.
Okay.
can
I
see
mean,
the
that's
exact-
approaching that concept.
We
for
can
sure.
see the exact amount of time that our items are toasting for, and it's just astounding.
Yeah,
So-
this is just hearing like a.
So yeah, I'm actually very curious to see what kind of kitchen appliances come out of CES. And I know that doesn't sound very glamorous. You know, everyone goes to CES. They want to hear about TVs. They want to hear about PC parts. They want to hear
I mean,
about
that is so
stuff like
fun.
that.
It is so fun.
I'm just very curious to see what comes out of these smart appliances or
Yeah.
just in general, stuff like that. I'm very,
Mhm.
very curious.
Yeah, like we already have smart refrigerators, so let's see what else they have to bring in.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
with that said,
Mhm.
that is going to conclude today's episode. Of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, our social media will be right down over here. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Anchor, or Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that you hear your podcast, that stuff will be in the description of your respective platform.
Of course, do make sure to keep an eye out for that. But with that said, until then, we will be seeing you next time. This has been Francisco from Tech Summit,
And Chris.
and we will be seeing you all on the next episode with episode 19.
And of course, episode 19 would be handling everything after CES has already happened.
Yep. So we're going to be a lot more informed in that regard, and we're going
Hopefully.
to be able to bring a lot more hot takes and opinions in that
That's
regard.
right.
Yeah. So until next time.
That's right. Good night. Travel well.